Hello, my name's Kate and welcome to Disneyland Paris for grown-ups. I'm here to guide you through your Disneyland Paris adventure, bring you valuable information to enhance your stay, make your journey as stress-free as possible, and show you some hidden details of the Parisian park. In our videos we like to look at the rides and attractions of Disneyland Paris, and since it's currently celebrating its 25th birthday, we thought it would be a great time to delve into the history of Star Wars' Hyperspace Mountain. Dominating the skyline of the area, Space Mountain is one of the first things that tells you that you've arrived at Disneyland Paris. So much so, it can be seen from both the train station and the car park. It's even more visible than the iconic castle. It's strange then to think that Space Mountain wasn't even built when Disneyland Paris opened in April 1992. Although it was planned from the beginning, original maps and photographs of the park show large areas of open land where Space Mountain and the Nautilus attraction would eventually be built. While the ride was always intended for Disneyland Paris, on its 25th birthday, what we know and love today is quite different to what was on the drawing board before the park opened. The original concept drawings show something much grander than what we see today. That's not to say the final product was anything less than breathtaking, and was credited as being the saviour of the Disneyland Paris park at the time, but to understand the history of the ride, we need to go back and look at the park before it opened. When Euro Disney was being built in the late 1980s and early 90s, concerns over the budget of the park were already growing, and it became apparent that things needed to be scaled back. And while the building of Space Mountain was shelved for the original opening in 1992, it was intended that if guest numbers were low in the early years, the construction of a striking new ride would bring a welcome boost to the park. The original plans for the attraction consisted of a 100-metre diameter building, containing food outlets, a railway station, a Nautilus-themed freefall ride and a roller coaster with a viewing gallery. There would also be a covered walkway between what was to be called Discovery Mountain and Videopolis, as well as routes to the Discoveryland Theatre. It became apparent in the early years of the park that income wasn't quite as expected, and again, the Imagineers had to rethink their original designs. By the time of the 1995 opening, Space Mountain, from the Earth to the Moon, was a much smaller 61 metres across and contained only the roller coaster, queue, photographs and souvenir store. Outside, a Nautilus walkthrough attraction was built in the waters surrounding Space Mountain, and we'll come on to look at this in a future video. On the 31st of May 1995, a spectacular star-studded opening ceremony was held, with fireworks, opera singers, balloonists and even a man with a jetpack. The following day it was open to the general public. Disney Imagineers took a different path for Paris, and instead of Tomorrowland, they created Discoveryland. Inspired by the French science fiction author Jules Verne, Discoveryland was steampunk themed, and therefore Space Mountain was set in the world of his novel, From the Earth to the Moon. What resulted was an incredibly beautiful piece of architecture. With its colourful decoration, industrial steel girder and rivet construction, as well as its intricate animated Columbiad cannon, there is no mistaking Disneyland Paris Space Mountain, and it was like nothing else in any other Disney park at the time. For the first 10 years Space Mountain remained unchanged, and guests could observe part of the ride from the queue, and were kept entertained by the elaborate decoration of the Victorian Baltimore Gun Club. The concept of the ride being that the cannon would fire you into space, where you would travel past asteroids, space mining machines and eventually reaching a smiling moon. The construction of Buzz Lightyear's laser blast in 2004 led to a change in theming for Space Mountain, and in 2005 it reopened as Space Mountain Mission 2. With the new name came new ride features and slight changes to the launch system. The Victorian styling was brought slightly more up to date, and more futuristic elements were added into the queue decor, including video screens instructing you about your mission. Another 10 years had passed and the ride was once again becoming tired. The trains from the ride were the originals from 1995. Parts for these were becoming harder to obtain, not to mention how uncomfortable the seats and harnesses were. As part of a revamp, Disneyland Paris ordered new train carriages and upgraded the colour scheme. Around the same time, the Disney Corporation decided they wanted to retake control of the park, having bought up all the shares. They'd also recently acquired the rights to the Star Wars films and wanted to bring in something to match with Star Tours. So it was decided that Space Mountain would become Star Wars Hyperspace Mountain, and the ride rethemed once again. This time with X-Wing battles, the Star Wars soundtrack of John Williams, and new in-ride video footage. It was, however, too late to change the design of the newly ordered trains, and when Hyperspace Mountain opened in 2017, the new trains retained the original Jules Verne theme, although in a different colour. The ride and track layout haven't changed over the life of the attraction, but while it is an older roller coaster, it's still a powered launched rapid ride with multiple loops, twists and corkscrews. While the theming is now a little confused, it is massively enjoyable for young and older riders, especially as the new carriages reduce the minimum rider height. On the way out of the Victorian loading area, there's a booth with video screens on the exit to the ride, and a souvenir stand where you can buy your photographs, scan your photo pass, or buy popcorn and snacks. The current layout of the ride also includes a queue for single riders, which often has a very short waiting time compared to the much longer normal queue. But if you don't want to wait, there is also a fast pass system for this ride. All in all, this is one of the most imposing and spectacular rides in the park, and definitely not to be missed on your visit. While it's not usually open in extra magic hours, if you're in the park during that time, you can get in line super early and be one of the first on the ride after the rope drops. So happy 25th birthday to Hyperspace Mountain. What's your favourite version of the ride? Let us know in the comments below. If you've not already done so, then be sure to hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to click the bell icon if you want to get updates of when we post new Disney-based content. Thumbs up and we'll see you in the next video.